Okay, so this losing my religion trend has got me on one. Y'all mean to tell me that these disciples in the Middle East were named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Nah, make it make sense.
Well, actually, they were named Matisyahu, Marcos, Lucas, and Yohanan. Have you ever heard a Hispanic person pronounce Mexico, Mexico? Or have you ever wondered why the Spanish form of Joseph is Jose and not simply Joseph? This is because of the linguistic concepts known as transliteration, Latinization, and contraction. Now, we're all familiar with the concept of translation. That is, when a word from a source language is rendered in a foreign target language, like the English milk becoming the Spanish leche. But here, I want to talk about the concept of transliteration. Transliteration is when a word from a source language's foreign alphabet is rendered in a target language's alphabet. For example, the Hebrew yud, which makes a y sound, is often rendered in the English alphabet as J, which is why the Hebrew Yosef becomes the English Joseph. Next, we have the concept of Latinization. Latinization is when a non-Latin word is rendered in a more Latin style. For example, the Hebrew Moshe being rendered as the Latin-sounding Moses. Lastly, we have the concept known as contraction. Contraction is when one takes a longer word and simply makes it shorter. For example, William becomes Will. These three together form a kind of chain of translation, if you will, whereby names take on various forms, a chain which gets longer and more complex depending on how many languages we go through with a given name. So let's look at the examples. Matisyahu in Hebrew is transliterated to Aramaic, and there it is rendered as Mattai. Mattai is then transliterated into Greek, and there it becomes rendered as Matthios. It then passes through Latin and becomes Latinized, but it sounds mostly the same, being Matthias. Eventually, this makes its way into the English, and in English we render it as Matthew. Marcos is Greek and is Latinized as Marcus, which is contracted to form the English Mark. Lucas is the same, going from this to the Latin Lucas, and then to the English Luke. Yohanan is transliterated to Greek as Ionis. The guttural ch doesn't really exist in most European languages. Ionis becomes Latinized as Ionis, little difference, which in German is rendered as Johann. This is important because the German letter J makes a y sound, like in Jaeger. But when we transliterate the same word into English, our J makes a j sound, like in jelly. So Johann becomes John in the English. So, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.